There was periods of time where Jack Grealish was a massively important player to the style and the way that Pep Guardiola wanted to find success and winning. And he had that.
Where next then for Jack Grealish, the Englishman reportedly on his way out of Manchester City. Here's the odds. Favourite to join Tottenham Hotspur, to join up with Thomas Frank. Be interesting to see how he'd get on there, potentially reinvigorate his career in the Premier League, perhaps go abroad as well, the next couple of sides away from the Premier League. Napoli over in Serie A, Fenerbahce potentially in Turkey, and then plenty of Premier League clubs obviously will be looking at him, West Ham, Everton, and potentially a return to his old club, Aston Villa. Before we sort of talk about where he could head next, let's look back at his time at City. He was at the club just over 4 years, or has been there just over 4 years. How would you rate his time there? Because when you look at the trophies, you'd say it was a roaring success.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was positive. I think it was a good move for him at the time. I think he got the deal and the contract that he wanted. And I think we did see glimpses of the ceiling of what Jack Grealish could be. I think it's difficult under Pep Guardiola. It's not for everyone. But he did have so much success. I would say that there was one season where he reached maybe true star level, and that was 2023 when they did win this trophy here, winning the Champions League. 6 goals, 11 assists from the midfield that season, but really did have a big impact on this team where you said, okay, he was a lockdown starter week in, week out for Pep Guardiola that season. You see here the differences. Obviously, he spent a lot more time at Aston Villa, where he grew up from 2011 to 2021, 10 seasons there. So it's difficult to compare. But you see the trophies there. That's the big number.
Yeah, that's the big number, and that's what he wanted. And a lot of people make the case of, well, should he have ever left Villa? And Villa, obviously, since he left, have made a real uptick. Now, he wouldn't have seen that. And I think from a sporting context, and this is what, I mean, we've obviously worked around elite sports people. They do think a little bit differently, and you have to take your chances when you get them, when it comes to contracts, when it comes to moves to different clubs. You may not get those opportunities again. You might get injured. Who knows what could happen in sport? And it was his opportunity to join the champions, to play for a club that obviously had designs to win the Champions League, which he went on and achieved, and win all of these trophies. Would he have achieved that at Villa? No, he wouldn't have done. So I think when you look at that question mark, should he have left Villa, I'm sure he would have still enjoyed his time at Villa. He would have played in a lot of games, that he would have been the focal point of that team. And some of the success that Villa have had and that run in the Champions League that we saw last season would have happened with him in their team. But he would never have done what he did at Manchester City.
You could say that part of the reason Villa had so much success after he left was because of that transfer fee, because of the fact that Manchester City was able, or Villa was able to kind of build on that after he left the club. So I don't think he would have had the same type of success at Aston Villa. I think it's pretty evident that he wouldn't have had that same type of winning success. Maybe the football would have been a bit better. I think it was a good move. Again, I'm gonna go back and say it. I think it was a good move for him at the time. I think he got a lot out of working with Pep Guardiola and being in this Manchester City side. Got an opportunity to be, obviously, to be at the top level with England as well. So I do think that a lot of positives came from this move for Jack Grealish. Again, maybe that was the ceiling for him. Maybe that's the best. Or maybe going back to another club where he has less pressure and less competition, he could still shine. He's only 29 years old. That's what's crazy about all this. And it feels like he's been around for such a long time. It's because he started playing professional football at such a young age. He's only 29 years old, can still absolutely revitalize his career elsewhere and continue to have success. Got his trophies with Manchester City, got his massive contract. You can never blame a player for getting that, like you mentioned. It's a short window that these players have to make an exorbitant amount of money, but set them up for the rest of their lives. So you can't really blame a player for taking that. From a playing perspective, I still think that there is some bright moments ahead for Jack Grealish.
The other talking point that gets bandied around is, was he a Pep, or is he a Pep-style player? And I think the response to that is that he seemed to be a Pep-style player, but in small doses. Pep was happy with him for a few games, and then it was like, oh no, he's doing too many of these tricks, and we're going to move on to someone who's a bit more pragmatic and plays in the style that Pep Guardiola likes. I don't think you can say, though, that he wasn't a Pep-style player, because, and we saw in that Champions League winning campaign, there were long periods where Manchester City were playing very, very well with Jack Grealish in the starting lineup.
Yeah, I think that maybe you get that and you hear he's not a Pep-style player because you look at Jack Grealish maybe as a I don't know, attacking midfielder, a number 10. And Pep Guardiola doesn't really play that style, right? It's been a 4-3-3. This is the style he's played forever. So you had Jack Grealish playing as an 8, sometimes playing out wide as a winger. So maybe that's where you could say he's not a Pep-style player because his role and the way he liked to play was very different than the way he had to play for Manchester City. But he still had success there. Like you said, there was periods of time where Jack Grealish was a massively important player to the style and the way that Pep Guardiola wanted to find success and winning. And he had that. So I do think that he did end up fitting in that hole, but maybe it was kind of a square peg, round hole type thing.
Yeah, he does have this immense talent. I remember covering the back end of his time at Villa and the start of when he was at City, and he was, particularly at Villa, obviously the fans loved him because of his story at the club. But every time the ball went to him, everyone was on their feet because he has that mercurial ability to just do anything with the ball, turn a player, get past him. So skillful, and it would be great to see him move to a different club and enjoy his football once again and be able to show that off. We saw Spurs there at the top of the list, and I think that's the one that makes the most sense, and I think a lot of Spurs fans would like to have him. But we've both decided where we think it would be best for him to go. What have you gone for?
Spurs, I think, would be interesting, but I'm going to go back to Aston Villa. I think that where Aston Villa is now, in the Europa League, obviously next season, had the great Champions League campaign, I think that he will be most comfortable back at his home club, back where the people love him, back where he knows and is used to the atmosphere and the what is expected at him from this club. We saw his best football maybe for a while at Manchester City, but I think if you still look at it as a whole, he's a legend at Aston Villa. So why not go back to the club that made you, that got you the big move? And now that they're having success and they could push on and compete in the Europa League and eventually maybe get back into the Champions League as well, I do think that Villa, it would be, I think, a good landing spot for him to go back and kind of pick up where he left off and get those fans back on his side. I think it would be a good homecoming for him where he'll feel comfortable and be able to have success.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I've gone with Napoli, and I haven't just said Napoli. I'm going to go with almost any foreign club because I've looked at what's happened to Scott McTominay, who's been able to reinvigorate his career for Napoli. It was just not the environment that he wanted at Manchester United. It was only heading really one direction. It would become quite negative for him at Old Trafford. Decided to take that brave step to move abroad, which we know for English players, Premier League players, is not always the most well-trodden path, and he's gone and been brilliant. He's obviously been one of the star players in Serie A last season, won the title. Ademola Lookman, you can give his example as well, playing for Napoli and then at Atalanta as well. I think there is an opportunity for these players who've spent their time in the Premier League to have a broader horizon and go abroad and not deal with this a mountain of pressure that's on them week in, week out as a homegrown player. And I would like to see him go play for Napoli, go play for Fenerbahce, or somewhere you like to go on holiday. Go and play for Como, somewhere else.
Gotta be careful with Jack Grealish telling him to go where he wants to go on holiday as well. It is interesting with him. I do think it's about personality as well. I'm not sure that Jack Grealish would want to leave England. I'm not sure he's that type of player or at that point in his career. But again, I think there could be positives to that, to leaving the pressure and the media in the UK behind and being able to just go focus on football elsewhere.